What if the truth about World War II was far more terrifying than what we were taught? Hidden operations, buried weapons, forbidden science, sealed behind decades of classified silence. These aren't just rumors. They're pieces of history that were meant to disappear. But tonight, we open the files they tried to destroy. Berlin, April 1945. The city groaned under Soviet artillery, flames licking the skyline like a final judgment. In the reinforced bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler prepared to die. Or so the world was told. In reality, Operation Schattenmann had already begun. Weeks earlier, a select circle within the SS had activated the plan. Conceived in 1943 as the tide of war turned, Schattenmann aimed to preserve the Führer's life, and the ideology he embodied, beyond the Third Reich's fall. Its architect, SS Obergruppenführer Ernst Kaltenbrunner, had chosen a loyal yet obscure officer with a striking resemblance to Hitler. Franz Bormann, no relation to Martin. Trained for months in voice, speech, and mannerisms, Franz had even undergone facial surgery and dental alterations. The final touch was a fabricated dental record, designed to match Hitler's remains once the deception was complete. In the last week of April, Hitler's behavior in the bunker shifted. Witnesses described a man no longer commanding, but muttering and dazed, consistent with Franz's limited grasp of strategy. Eva Braun, ever compliant, played her role, instructed to stay silent. Real Hitler was already gone. Smuggled out through the Führer's personal escape route, a tunnel beneath Tiergarten disguised as sewage infrastructure, the true Hitler emerged under cover of night. A motorcade of disguised ambulances drove him to the military airfield at Rechlin. From there, he boarded a Junkers Ju-290, retrofitted for long-range flight. Its destination, a remote airstrip in Spanish-controlled Morocco, neutral and bribable. From there, a network of Nazi sympathizers and forged identities carried him through South America's shadowy corridors of exile. Intelligence files released decades later hinted that a German-speaking man named Herr Fischer arrived in Buenos Aires in mid-May 1945, under diplomatic protection. He was never photographed. But locals remembered a figure with intense blue eyes and a limp, always surrounded by former SS bodyguards posing as security consultants. Back in Berlin, Soviet forces breached the bunker on May 2nd. Inside the dimly lit room, they found two charred bodies, a man and a woman, allegedly Hitler and Eva. Soviet forensic teams were under pressure to prove the Führer was dead. They rushed to compare dental remains with those provided by Hitler's personal dentist, unaware that those records had been falsified months before. Stalin himself was unconvinced, demanding secrecy. The official Soviet line changed repeatedly. The West took the story and ran with it. Hitler was dead by his own hand, and the war had ended in suicide and flames. But whispers refused to die. In 1947, an OSS report from Argentina mentioned sightings of a man matching Hitler's description in the town of Bariloche, long known as a Nazi hideout. Locals told stories of armed Germans living in secluded estates. In one chilling account, a hunter claimed he found a Nazi flag hanging inside a remote cabin, and a photograph of Hitler post-war sitting beside a younger man wearing a Luftwaffe uniform. The CIA followed the leads but never made their findings public. Decades later, a whistleblower within Argentine intelligence revealed that in 1955, an elderly German man was briefly detained under suspicion of being Adolf Hitler. He was released 2 hours later under orders from the highest level. No paperwork survived. Forensic experts who examined the Soviet Hitler skull in 2009 discovered something shocking. The remains belonged to a woman under 40. The world gasped, but by then, too much time had passed. Records had been lost. Witnesses were dead. Could Hitler have lived another 20 years in quiet exile? Some believe he died in the early 1960s, buried beneath a German-built compound deep in Patagonia. Others say he escaped further, to a secluded valley in Chile, his identity finally erased. But the most damning evidence came in 1978, when a retired CIA officer named Gerald McQuinn claimed to have personally overseen surveillance of a high-value Nazi exile in Mendoza between 1952 and 1958. In one passage of his unpublished memoir, He described watching a thin, elderly man emerge onto a balcony, his left arm trembling uncontrollably, his mustache now white, but unmistakable. Gerald died before the book was released. The manuscript disappeared from his family home 3 days later. For the world, the war ended in a Berlin bunker. But in the shadows, some say it merely relocated. March 1945. As Europe lay in ruins and Japan reeled from American firebombing, Joseph Stalin launched a secret operation that never made it into the history books. Operation Chumak, named after the Ukrainian word for wanderer, was not meant for the European theater or even the Asian mainland. It was aimed at American soil. The Aleutian Islands, a remote, frozen chain stretching from Alaska to the Pacific, had already seen combat. In 1942, the Japanese occupied Attu and Kiska, briefly planting flags on American territory. But few knew that, in early 1945, the Soviet Union, under the guise of Arctic reconnaissance, began moving submarines and icebreakers toward the Bering Sea. According to a set of redacted Soviet naval logs declassified in the 1990s, a fleet of 5 submarines and 2 stealth-equipped patrol vessels were deployed from Vladivostok. Their mission: land a small contingent of Spetsnaz troops on Little Diomede Island and establish a forward base to monitor American activity in Nome and Anchorage. Some believe the deeper goal was psychological, to prove that no territory, not even America's, was beyond Stalin's reach. The Americans were unaware, almost. On March 22, 1945, an Alaskan weather station reported anomalous light signals on Little Diomede, where no U.S. personnel were stationed. A week later, an Army Air Corps patrol flight noticed strange trenches in the snow. But due to High Command's preoccupation with Japan and the looming invasion of Okinawa, the reports were shelved. It wasn't until a fishing trawler, piloted by Aleut locals, found a dead man in Soviet naval gear washed ashore that panic set in. The U.S. response was swift and silent. The 6th Ranger Battalion, fresh from Pacific skirmishes, was diverted to Unalaska under cover of night. Their new objective: eliminate any hostile presence on the Aleutians without public knowledge. Operation Iceveil was born. In early April, under the cover of a blizzard, the Rangers landed on Little Diomede. What they found shocked even the most hardened soldiers. Abandoned tents, Russian equipment, and crude radio towers suggested a Soviet presence lasting at least a month. Blood trails led to a nearby cave system, where they engaged in a short but brutal firefight with the remnants of the Spetsnaz unit. Only 2 Americans survived. No Soviets did. Back in Washington, President Roosevelt, now gravely ill, was briefed. He reportedly told his inner circle, "The war is nearly over. We will not open another front." The incident was buried. The official report claimed the Rangers were conducting cold weather exercises. Meanwhile, Stalin received word that his men had been neutralized. Instead of retaliating, he ordered the operation erased. Surviving Soviet officers were reassigned to the gulags or shot. The goal had been deterrence, not occupation. He had made his point: the Red Army could reach anywhere. But the legacy of Operation Chumak never truly died. In the early 1960s, CIA documents, only revealed decades later, showed aerial photos of strange structures on Big Diomede Island, the Russian twin to Little Diomede. Among them was a half-buried base with antennae matching Cold War signal jammers. Even more disturbing were civilian testimonies. An Alaskan woman, Emma McBride, who lived in Nome in 1945, claimed her father worked at a small military outpost. On his deathbed, he told her of Russian ghosts who bled into the snow, and the night he burned foreign maps marked Anchorage, 12 days march. Skeptics dismissed her account, until a documentary crew in 1993 found fragments of Soviet ration tins in a cave matching her father's description. To this day, the U.S. government has never acknowledged any combat with Soviet forces on American soil. But the records, scattered in archives, hinted at in memoirs, and whispered among old soldiers, tell a different story. The Cold War may have officially started in 1947. But in the frozen silence of the Aleutians, it had already drawn blood. In the final days of the Third Reich, While Berlin smoldered and Hitler's closest aides prepared for suicide, a secret order rippled through the last operational naval command in Kiel: activate Ghost Convoy. The 51st U-boat flotilla was unlike any other. Formed in late 1944 under the direct oversight of Admiral Donitz, it consisted of 7 Type XXI submarines, the most advanced vessels Nazi Germany ever built, capable of staying submerged for weeks. Their mission was not to attack Allied convoys or defend the crumbling homeland. Instead, they were to disappear. Operation Vergeltungschatten, Shadow of Retribution, was set in motion on April 20, 1945. The U-boats were loaded not with torpedoes, but with gold bars, classified SS documents, stolen art, medical samples, and several mysterious crates marked only with the swastika and the sigil of the Ahnenerbe, the Nazi Occult Research Division. Each submarine carried a different destination encoded in sealed orders, to be opened only once at sea. But their general objective was the same: escape Europe, disappear into the oceans, and wait. On May 1, 1945, 7 U-boats slipped out under cover of night. 3 left from Kiel, 2 from Bergen, and 2 from La Rochelle. One was intercepted by the Royal Navy within days and sunk off the coast of Norway. The crew was never found. The others vanished. Over the decades, fragments of their existence resurfaced in strange and scattered ways. In 1951, British divers exploring a trench off the Canary Islands found the decayed wreck of a Type XXI U-boat that had never been listed as missing. Inside, they discovered a rusted crate filled with gold bars bearing Reichsbank seals. The discovery was suppressed under the Official Secrets Act. In 1968, Argentine fishermen near Tierra del Fuego reported a black steel whale breaching at dusk, vanishing seconds later. The Navy investigated but found nothing, until 1984, when an unmapped underwater structure was detected by seismic survey teams. It was roughly U-boat sized. The Argentinian government sealed off the area and built a research station nearby. But perhaps the most disturbing evidence came in 1992, when oceanographers off the Falkland Islands scanned a deep-sea trench and captured sonar images of a metallic shape too large to be natural, and too angular to be a wreck. That same year, documents surfaced from a retired Chilean intelligence officer, detailing a Nazi-funded compound deep in Patagonia, allegedly built to house arriving personnel from undersea craft. Among the officer's effects was a water-damaged journal. One passage read, **, they come without light. No flags. No language. Only orders. The gold is unloaded at night. The men are pale, like ghosts. They speak of a new fire to come. **. In Germany, the official record remained silent. Post-war naval logs listed the 51st Flotilla as lost in the Atlantic. Donitz, captured and tried at Nuremberg, never spoke of the flotilla, but one of his aides, Karl Haas, later told a British historian that the operation had been a seed buried in the ocean, waiting for rain. Many dismiss the story as Cold War paranoia, fueled by spy fiction and rumors of Nazi survival in South America. Yet to this day, treasure hunters search the depths near Argentina, Norway, and even Antarctica, lured by whispers of the Ghost Convoy. What was in the sealed crates? Some believe they contained the remains of Nazi experiments, biological weapons, uranium samples, even occult relics recovered during SS expeditions. Others suspect they held the seed plans for a Fourth Reich, a shadow empire that never needed land, only secrecy, silence, and time. In 2013, a private maritime company scanning the ocean floor for oil made an unusual discovery northeast of South Georgia Island, a metallic object, 76 meters in length, lying intact beneath layers of silt. When the sonar images leaked online, amateur historians instantly matched its dimensions to a Type XXI U-boat. The coordinates vanished days later from the internet. The company's official statement, "We found nothing." But those who believe in the Ghost Convoy say 5 U-boats remain missing, waiting, listening, and one day, perhaps, surfacing. August 1945. The world watched in horror as Hiroshima and Nagasaki were engulfed in nuclear fire. Yet few knew there was a third atomic bomb, ready, assembled, and never dropped. Its name was Azrael, the Angel of Death. Constructed at Los Alamos alongside Fat Man and Little Boy, Azrael was a uranium-based device designed for deployment if Japan refused surrender. The plan was simple: wait 10 days. If Tokyo did not submit, the third city, likely Kokura, would be vaporized. But Japan capitulated on August 15th. The war, it seemed, was over. The bomb was no longer needed. Except it never made it back to the U.S. Official records indicate that Azrael was scheduled to be dismantled and returned aboard a modified B-29 from Tinian Island. But on August 17, 1945, Flight AX-312, a no-name mission with no listed crew, disappeared somewhere over the Philippine Sea. No distress call, no wreckage, just a vanishing. The U.S. military launched a quiet search. Naval ships combed the waters for weeks, but found nothing. The incident was buried under routine debriefings. By 1947, only 3 people in the Pentagon remembered Flight AX-312, and 2 of them were later reassigned to Project Paperclip, conveniently unavailable for testimony. Decades later, a strange rumor emerged from the jungles of Mindoro Island, Philippines. Local villagers spoke of a silver dragon that fell from the sky during a storm in the 1940s. They found debris, American military gear, and something else, a sealed, coffin-sized container half buried in mud. Fearing a curse, they left it untouched. Then the jungle grew back. In 1974, a CIA reconnaissance satellite picked up an unusual radiation signature from the region. Though faint, it matched early U-235 isotopic decay. A team was quietly dispatched under the guise of anti-insurgency aid. They returned empty-handed, or so they said. The mission was never officially acknowledged. The mystery deepened in 1998, when a declassified memo surfaced through a FOIA request. Dated September 12, 1945, and signed by General Groves of the Manhattan Project, it read, "Asterisk, in the event that Package A is irretrievable, under no circumstances must its loss be publicized. Containment is theoretical. Assume long-term instability if casing integrity is compromised." Asterisk. What did Package A contain? Researchers believe it was Azrael, still whole, still deadly, lying in a forgotten crater beneath layers of vines and ash. But the most chilling clue arrived in 2003, when a team of Filipino spelunkers exploring a cave system stumbled across a metallic cylinder wedged deep in rock. Photographs show faded stenciling, property of U.S. Army Air Forces, and a partially legible code, AZRL3. The cave was sealed soon after by local authorities. 2 of the explorers fell ill days later. Their skin showed signs of acute radiation burns. No explanation was given. If Azrael still lies in the jungle, leaking, decaying, the danger is not just historical. The uranium core, under certain conditions, could still reach criticality. If disturbed or tampered with, it could cause a catastrophic explosion, especially if water intrusion corrodes its neutron reflectors. Some believe the U.S. has been quietly monitoring the site for decades, ensuring no one gets close. Others fear that black market arms dealers already know of its existence. A portable, functioning atomic bomb, even degraded, would fetch unimaginable prices on the dark web. Yet official silence remains. Azrael is not acknowledged in any museum, document, or textbook. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we are told, were the end. But in the jungle, the angel of death sleeps. And it may not stay asleep forever. January 1945. As Germany crumbled under Allied pressure, deep beneath the Harz Mountains, a secret war continued. Far from the front lines, within the concrete labyrinth of the SS fortress known as Mittelwerk, Nazi scientists worked feverishly on a final, desperate experiment, Project Wotan. Named after the god of war and death in Norse mythology, Project Wotan was the brainchild of SS Gruppenführer Victor Roche, a physician with ties to the Ahnenerbe and a record of grotesque human experimentation. Roche believed that Germany could still win, not with tanks or rockets, but with men reborn through science. Enhanced soldiers, stronger, faster, utterly loyal. At the heart of Wotan was a brutal program of forced augmentation. Prisoners from concentration camps, particularly those deemed genetically fit, were selected as test subjects. These men were injected with adrenal compounds, experimental amphetamines, and synthetic hormones designed to suppress pain, fear, and fatigue. Many died within days, bodies swollen and veins blackened. But a few survived. Those who did changed. Reports from captured Nazi doctors after the war describe subjects with abnormally high muscular density, absence of response to blunt trauma, and in one case, subject continued physical aggression for 14 minutes after clinical death. One American medic who helped liberate Nordhausen claimed he saw a man chained in a cell, eyes completely black, who didn't speak, only breathed, heavy like an engine. But these were not myths. In 1997, a classified British intelligence file from 1946 surfaced. It detailed a secret US-UK mission called Operation Thornwood, targeting an unsecured biological site near Blankenberg. What they found there stunned even hardened commandos. Inside the subterranean base were rows of surgical tables, cages large enough for humans, and sealed rooms with claw marks embedded in the walls. Several decomposed bodies bore unnatural wounds. Some appeared to have bitten through iron restraints. Film footage recovered from the site, later buried by US intelligence, showed men in SS uniforms observing restrained test subjects being injected, their eyes dilating instantly. Then, convulsions and silence. But the most chilling evidence. 3 bodies, cryogenically preserved. They were recovered and flown to Wright Field, Ohio, under extreme secrecy. Autopsies revealed synthetic implants fused with vertebrae and spinal fluid laced with a serum no modern lab has ever reproduced. A decade later, the bodies vanished from US records. In the Cold War years, whispers emerged of Soviet experiments based on stolen Wotan files. Defectors from East Germany spoke of iron men held in bunkers, some reawakened under drug-induced stasis, others used as genetic templates. One defector in 1961 warned of a new war being planned, not with bombs, but with monsters. The US, too, explored the research. Documents from MKUltra trials reveal a series of tests labeled W-class, conducted in 1958. Subjects were given modified amphetamines and gene-altering serums. Most failed. One escaped. The incident remains classified. The public never knew. Some historians dismiss Project Wotan as Nazi fantasy, a final delusion of a regime steeped in occultism. But the scars in those mountain tunnels remain. So do the testimonies. And once, in 1983, hikers in the Harz Mountains reported distant, animalistic howls at night, and a pale figure standing motionless in the mist, watching. German authorities dismissed it as folklore. But locals whisper of an old man in a nearby village who still lights candles each week for the ghosts below. He claims to be the last guard stationed at Mittelwerk, now blind, his wrists still marked by old bruises. He tells a story. Near the war's end, when defeat was certain, 3 subjects were sealed in reinforced chambers and left behind. They wouldn't die, he says. They wouldn't stop screaming. So we buried them alive. If true, they're still there. Still waiting. Still breathing. The Third Reich may be gone, but Wotan remembers. You've just seen what the world was never supposed to know. But ask yourself, if these secrets escaped the grave, what else is still buried? Some doors should stay closed. Some wars never really end. And sometimes, history doesn't whisper. It waits and watches.